Hey everybody, welcome to Drive Thru Review 796. Today we're going to talk about HeroQuest First Light. Now a couple years ago I reviewed kind of the new edition re-release of the original HeroQuest. I'll put a link to the video description there. That was your only entry point into getting HeroQuest until this came out, and this is coming out like right now as I'm recording this video. That other box is somewhat north of $100. It's quite a big box. You know, it's got tons of miniatures and plastic doors and furniture and all this kinds of stuff. This one is going to be like right around $50. Kind of depends which country you're in, Europe, Canada, United States, and so on. But ballpark $50. This is a kind of a new entry point, so you could pick this up and then get expansions that are all going to be just perfectly compatible with this. If you kind of already have everything or you have the original set, this still might be of interest to you because it has kind of a new intro starting quest or quest line. There's 10 quests in here, and it's kind of interesting because the story sort of parallels the original story in the original game, which is kind of cool. You have your 4 heroes, your barbarian, your elf, your dwarf, and your wizard, and you know, some of the similar monsters and items and all that kind of stuff that you get. So a couple other things are of interest depending if you're coming into it brand new or if you're kind of a returning player into why or why not you might pick this up. So I'm going to go down to the table. I'm not going to really go over like all the mechanics of how to play HeroQuest. It's pretty simple. Like I said, I'll have my video link below. I will show some updates to the app that are pertinent based on some of the comments I had made at the time. In that video, they've updated and improved the app, so I'll show that here. And then I'll kind of walk through some of the other pieces of it here and kind of come back, give you my general thoughts on it. So let's jump down to the table and then we'll take a look. Okay, so I did kind of want to sort of unbox it. I've obviously already punched it and played this a little bit, so I just want to kind of give you a sense of the box. So you see kind of the size of the box here. You've got your quest book, which you don't want to see too much of unless you're going to be the Zargon player. Slightly updated rule book with just some clarifications from the original. So you do, if you are a returning player, you get kind of a slightly improved rule book. You get a new quest line, which you could use to you know, introduce new players to the game instead of playing through the same one again and again and again. This gives you kind of an alternative path in. And then you get another Zargon screen. I think this is exactly like the other one. I'm not super sure, but I didn't really see any differences there. So you get another screen, get some more sheets, which you probably have hundreds of. You get a new board, which is actually double-sided, which I'll show you in a minute. And then you get the kind of this nice box insert here. So a couple things to note. We have some new miniatures here. So you have a new dragon miniature, which is brand new. And then, so you've got that. And you've got different sculpts for the basic 4 heroes here. So you've got the barbarian hero there, just a little different pose. And then the cards are just slightly different too with the new poses. But these are the same 4 heroes. The dwarf actually starts with a different weapon. It starts with the hand axe instead of the short sword, which is a little bit more thematic because it's a dwarf. Here you've got the wizard miniature. And then finally here, an elf miniature. So that is all of the miniatures that you get in the game. Now the rest of the components that would be plastic, here you've got some doors and walls and little traps and things like that, just like in the base game. Other tokens here for wound markers. Now the doors, you've got the closed door and the open door here. These are of course plastic in the re-released new edition of the game. One thing with these, I kind of wish these were hollow here, because in the new edition and even in the original edition, these were hollow. So I wish it was kind of like a double punch, so you punched the door out and then you could punch out this. I don't like that it's black, because there's like figures hiding behind that depending on like where you're sitting around the table, that you may not readily just be like, oh, there's a skeleton there or something. You know, you might forget, and then that kind of gets annoying. So that's a kind of a minor thing, but I do wish that. So here we have standees, and these are all monsters that come in the original game here. So you can see kind of the Dark Dread Knight. You've got the Abominations here. And these I quite like because, I mean, I prefer the minis, let's be honest. But for kind of a cheap entry point, this is a fine trade-off, I think, because I think I like the illustrations and the artwork on these, like so. It's a goblin. Let me see if I can find an orc here. Like so. And then so we have other, I think I've showed you everything. There's some zombies and mummies and stuff like that in there. Now here is also the furniture, which of course is big chunky plastic in the original game. And so here you just have cardboard. Again, I think this is a fine trade-off for a cheaper entry point in the game, which you can then upgrade to, you know, either get the big box or never get the big box and just get the expansions and just come off of here. Now the cards, nothing really to speak of here. The one thing I will say about the cards is you'll have extra equipment, which isn't very useful. You know, for a returning player. Obviously a new player is going to be useful. You've got the monster cards here, which you don't really need. You've got kind of the alternative dwarf card here that starts with the hand axe, but otherwise these cards are pretty much, you know, what's in the base game. Now, the nice thing is you get extra sets of the spells. So now you have air, fire, water, and earth, and you've got extra copies of this. So if you wanted to run kind of a funky party with like 2 wizards, I mean, not that you couldn't do it before, but it's kind of cool because you can sort of play with some party combinations here. Because typically what happens if you're new is the wizard will choose 3 elements and the elf will choose whatever the other element left over is. So in the games that I've been playing recently, I gave the air spells to the elf, and then the wizard had fire, water, and earth. And you know, that was fine. So now if I had 2 sets of these, I can run some different combinations, which is fun. Now the treasure cards, nothing really to speak of here. Same treasure deck as the original, and then the artifacts, and then you have the dread spells, which is the same that's in there. So if you're a returning player, the only thing really of value here is the extra spells, which is cool. You've also got here some different miniatures and sculpts, you know, some extra dice. The rest of this, the cardboard components, are really not going to be of any use to a returning player. But, you know, like I said, for an entry-level player, this is good. It makes it a cheaper, more available sort of entry point, and then you can move on from there. Now let's take a look at the board here. So here we have the normal side of the board. It's just slightly different. The board itself, the spaces are the same size as the original edition or the previous edition. The board itself is a little bit smaller. The other board is just very slightly bigger. It doesn't really make any difference. And then the logo here is a little bit different on this board. I like the other logo better. But on the other side of this board, you get a new style of map, which the quest line makes creative use of. So you have this sort of cave system. And it looks, you might look at this and be like, oh, that's just a bunch of squares. It's very interesting how they do it. I don't want to spoil it because it's kind of a cool sort of riff on some of the quests that you maybe are familiar with. So I just want to say I really like this. I'll talk more about this when we go up to my talking head in the review. But if you're being, like a creative, like a game master or the Zargon player, this is kind of nice because it gives you a different kind of layout. And once you see how they kind of use it in the quest book, that'll give you some more ideas, I think. So this is also a nice bang for your buck, if you're a returning player or an existing player. Now, the last thing I want to talk about here is some of the updates they've made to the app. Let's get this back on here. And then I have the sound turned down a little bit, but there's usually some ominous music. So I just want to show basically a couple things here. So if we go here, let me just zoom in. So this is all in the settings here, the thing that I really want to point out. Now you can go and add, this is already available, the First Light quest line. And what this does is the app acts as a game master for you, so you don't need a Zargon player, it'll run it through you. Which if you go back to my previous review, I was kind of like not so fond of, but they made some changes. First of all, they changed the tablet landscape, which I think is new. Some of these have been updated like a year ago, and some are more newer, I think. So the tablet landscape is nice because then you can turn this on its side. And I will say, even today, I would not play this on a phone. I would play it on a tablet, just because you're dragging the position of your characters where they are relative on the map, and doing it on the phone is not fun. I wouldn't play this on a phone anyway. So a couple of things: you can track monster tokens. You can toggle the furniture to be intangible if you really want. I wouldn't do that. I think that's new. These three settings right here: monsters attack weak, advanced goblins, and advanced skeletons. Now, and I've toggled some others here, but the most important, I think, is advanced goblins and advanced skeletons. I would have those always on, because without those, then the AI, so to speak, in the app is quite dumb, right? And it's very exploitable. Okay, now whereas if you turn these on, then they kind of move around a little bit more smartly. They don't just clog up the doorway for you to just kill one at a time and so on. So to me, these should just be on all the time. There shouldn't even be an option. I just turn both of those on. Monsters attack weak. I'm a little bit of two minds about that. I kind of go back and forth, because what it'll do, it'll always attack if the monster can get to the character that has the lowest hit points, which is going to be the wizard. Now, it doesn't know how many hit points you might have left, because it doesn't really track it in here, but so here you've got the body there and the body there. So I think you can set it up to track that, but if you don't, then it'll just attack whatever your starting is. But then at first that was really, I liked that, but then it kind of makes it a little bit predictable. So yeah, I don't know. So I turned it off. I played a couple of games with it on and then turned it off, because then it was it's pseudo random. It's like whoever it can get to, it gets to, which seems fine, because it seems like it would be a nice little difficulty improver to improve the difficulty, make it more difficult, but then it just becomes exploitable. They can. So I think there's some wiggle room there. I just leave it off, because bad rolls can kind of harm you anyway. Now down here at the bottom, there's a couple other ones which I played with. Well, I didn't play with double wandering monsters. So whenever you go through the treasure deck, sometimes you can get treasures, but you can also get wandering monster, which you then tap in the app and it'll spawn whatever the wandering monster is appropriate for that quest. So you could do that. I did play with some of these other ones here, all of these. So +1 body points, +1 mind points, +1 attack, +1 defend. So if a monster has, let's say here, like if I turned all those on, instead of 3 attack dice, this would roll 4. It would roll 4 defend dice instead. It would have 3 body points. It'd have 4 mind points. And I bumped all those up. I'm like, I played HeroQuest a whole bunch. I'm just going to turn all of these on. And then I've proceeded to, well, I didn't party wipe, but I was like pretty much about to wipe the whole party on the first quest. And I was like, yeah, that's too much. Because this game is not like level driven. You don't really level your characters up. The leveling happens through the different items and such. So as you level up, you might now, instead of the hand axe, I have the battle axe. I've got 4 attack dice now, and I've now got chainmail, which gives me extra body points and so on, or extra defend dice. And so what's nice about this, though, is if you could do something, this is just kind of theory crafting, you could take somebody through this quest line, and then if they were like, we want to play the other quest, when you start that game off, if you carry your characters over, they're going to have all this great equipment. By the time they get done with this quest line, they're going to have, a bunch of, they're just going to steamroll the entire first quest. But you could go turn a lot of these on and play with it, that way. Because this sort of simulates a little bit of what the Zargon player will do if you're playing one versus many. Because the game is really designed in its heart and its core to be tinkered with by the game master, similar to how a game master will operate in Dungeons and Dragons. Because if it finds out like this, it's too easy for you guys, so we got to ramp up the difficulty or whatever, or it's too hard or whatever. You can make some changes there. Now this will never be as good as a human, or at least a game master that knows what they're doing, kind of thing. But it's going to get close. So you can tinker with this here, and I think this, as your characters sort of level up and take on different quests, you as a group can kind of collectively say, okay, well, what would the game master should they do here? Well, let's just double wandering monsters up this time, or something like that. So it's good. But anyway, I would say always turn on advanced goblins and skeletons, because that's just really, really required. Okay, so that's pretty much it with the components and everything. Let's go back to my talking head. Okay, so that's a little bit about HeroQuest First Light. I'm not going to really do my normal 3 pillars of review, but I'm going to kind of go through them in a sense. The main thing I want to talk about is kind of the solo experience versus the experience, with other players, and then kind of the app in both cases. Now for me, I played through 5 of the quests in this. It's just all solo. And I really enjoyed it. I think the quests themselves that I've seen are really fun. I think there's a couple of nice little twists in there that I've seen. I haven't gotten all the way through the quest book yet. But I was pretty happily surprised about, like, oh, this is a cool little twist, or this is a little bit tricky. Then I figured out, not like crazy hard or anything, but it was like, oh, that's cute how they did that, And I use the word cute, and I feel it's derogatory. I don't mean that in a derogatory way at all. I'm like, oh, that's a little clever, that's fun. It's a very light game, right? So, and I liked what they did there, so that was cool. I will say, having now sat down with the app, the new additions to the app, the new updates, I like them a lot. I like how you can do these different things where you track the hero and all that stuff, or make the monster smarter. You can upgrade the difficulty as you want. I think those are all really excellent. I will say, when I was playing through it solo, it gets a little bit like you're too much in the app. Like, you could basically play the game with just the app, get rid of the board, sit there with some dice, have your little character sheets and your cards, and that's it. You don't even need the board out, which kind of like, it's a letdown because the game is such a visual thing, HeroQuest, with the furniture and the doors and everything. Now, I think in a situation where we were playing multiple people at the table and nobody really wanted to be Zargon, everybody wanted to play the heroes, then the app's actually going to serve itself very well. Because you can have one person in the app, but not everybody's going to be looking at the app. And it's not like the app is sucking your attention away from the board. You can choose to look at the board or the app and move your character around. The main thing is, though, because you have to drag your character through the spaces in case there's traps and things, so you might walk over a spike trap or a pick trap, then you have to be in the app to do that. So I think, though, the app would work really well. You could have one person with the app kind of acting as the DM, but is also playing. And then, Billy across the table says, okay, roll up, I get 6, so I'm going to go this way. So in the app, you just go, okay, you didn't hit a trap, or you did hit a trap. And then the app does a good job of narrating. There's actually voiceover. There's a lot of cool stuff. The app doesn't like overstay its welcome or insert itself. It's just that when you're playing solo, you're always in the app because you're doing all 4 characters, and it's just like you end up just being in the app that way in the solo experience. So, which kind of just detracts from the thing that makes HeroQuest great, which is like, this is going to sound strange, but it's the furniture, right? It's like, it's just the visual 3D-ness of it all, and like, there's an immersion to the way the board works in this that has just never really been achieved in other games, even with tiles. There's something special about the way, where there could be corridors, and you don't know if you go around this corner if there's just going to be a block or a trap or whatever. Other dungeon crawls don't really do that visceral sort of crawling experience. They just can't achieve it with the tile system that this does. And because the app pulls you out of that, it's like, yeah, okay. So, but I don't hate it. Like I said, I really liked the quests and stuff, and the little, sort of side curveballs it throws at you and all that kind of stuff. And it was fun. I had a good time, but it just kind of started pulling me out of it. But again, I think if I was in a type of experience with multiple players and just had like one person, and I would run the app, no problem. And but our attention, our focus, our conversation would all be on the board. And then I wouldn't give a crap if I got to go do, okay, you moved where? Okay, we're good. Fine. And then we can discuss things. Because then it would just be a couple seconds in the app, back to here. You know what I mean? And, but again, just the solo experience, it was like too much. The other thing I will say, so do I recommend this, that kind of thing? I would say yes, especially if you're a new player. I think this is cool. I like that there's a different quest line because I've played that starting quest, I don't know, probably 3 times, not all the way through 3 times, but all the way through twice. And, it's like this, if you want to say, we've talked in our group, excuse me for stuttering a little bit there, but we've talked in our group about, playing this because we do some campaign games here and there. And some of the other guys haven't played HeroQuest. And it's like, I'm like, yeah, let's totally do that. And I'm like, I don't really want to play the first quest line again. But, now this is different, so it's like a nice alternative. So I think that's really worth its salt there. just having that. And I like having the extra board. I don't know if other expansions will rely on this board or not, because then it'll kind of force you to buy this. I don't know if they should do that, but it'd be kind of cool because it's kind of a neat board, and that kind of thing. So yeah, so if you're an existing guy, then I don't know really if you should get this. I think if you're the type that gets everything, you're probably getting it anyway, because I know there's people out there like me that have everything already for it. The one thing I will say though, this was what makes it tough, is like I mentioned before, and I know this sounds silly, but the furniture. I don't really miss the miniatures of the monsters that much, although I kind of do, but I miss the furniture being 3D. Like it being flat, it's like, yeah, that's not really HeroQuest unless the furniture's 3D, because there's just, most games don't really have the 3D furniture. HeroQuest came out in the 90s or 89 or 90 or something, and they just came out with 3D furniture right away, and it's just cool because it just pops up. That may not be that important to people, but like I said, this is a good entry point. If you don't want to commit to, I think the original box is like $125. It might be more than that. It's a lot of money, and this is a much easier ask for people that have really wanted to try this but have not done it, and a much easier price point to get in. And then at that point you're like, okay, let's do that and then get an expansion or something, because I think really the only thing you're missing out of that base box is the furniture, because you'll end up getting with expansions miniatures, and you do come with hero miniatures here, and yeah, you don't have miniatures for the guys, the monsters. To me that's not that big a deal, but it'd be cool if they did like a furniture pack or something that you could upgrade this with, because then it's like a jump from $50 and you're like, oh, we're spending another $125 just to get the furniture. But to me, I don't know, you can't really oversell that furniture. Maybe I'm just stuck on that because I think it's, I remember when this came out all those years ago and I was like, holy cow, this looks amazing. But yeah, so I think, like I said, as an experience kind of taken on its own, it's really cool. I like the quest. I like the new map. I like the changes they've done to the app. You don't have to, have a Zargon player if you don't want, that kind of thing. So a little bit, some kind of caveats in there, but generally I recommend it. I think it's quality. I think it's fun, and it's just kind of up to you in terms of what you want to spend money on and what you want your entry point to be with HeroQuest. But yeah, take a look. Thanks.